And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing and very, very special co-host,
Stephen the Great.
So today you're Stephen the Great. He's also my husband, an attorney, and a medium.
Check.
Yes, and sometimes very, very silly. Like just before the show. But nevertheless, Stephen, welcome to today's show. Welcome everyone to today's show. We have an amazing show because we have an amazing person, an amazing woman who is going to be talking to us about, the alpha woman and why women should own their power. In business, any life. So I can't wait to talk to Dow Talker, who is a friend, a colleague, and somebody that we both know and we both respect and appreciate greatly.
I completely agree. And it's always great and interesting and fun when Dow comes on.
Yes. And we still, Stephen, remind me, we're still waiting, right? Because her wedding was going to be someday, somehow in 2025. And we were prepared to, marry her. And we're still waiting. So, I don't know.
Things change. Life changes,
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have that conversation with her shortly. But before we bring Dow into the studio, let's talk about what's been going on. First of all, you are in heaven because you are a polar bear, so you love the frigid cold.
Yeah, correct? I am very happy. I
here we go.
Prefer snow, more snow, which we have a deficit, even though I will say this winter so far has been a really, as I call this winter, an old-fashioned Santa Albert's winter. That's the grammar school I went to, and every time it's like a really good winter like I grew up in because I'm a New England boy, that, the winter's supposed to be cold. It's supposed to be freezing. It's supposed to be snow. And, I pay no attention to people that complain about it. If you want to complain, move out of here. Move to the South, right? I mean, it's the winter.
Well, the people in the South will tell you it's pretty cold down there, too. So I don't know.
Please. That's nothing. Come on. I mean, when it hits like 50, it's cold for them. In any case. So this is a good winter, but I just would prefer to have some more snow, even though I did run and, everything is still covered, lightly, just barely covered. Because when the last snowstorm here on Cape Cod, we just got like a dusting or so. But it's still there because it's been so cold, it's not melting. But I managed and ran, I think, like 4.25 miles this morning.
Yeah, but you also good. Run in a trail that is protected by the woods. So it's not like you're running outside exposed in the snow. I mean, the trail.
No, I did. I didn't run the trails.
Oh,
the trails, no, because the snow still was able to sneak in, and I can't go up and down hills with the snow there because it's just too risky. So I took the path to the cranberry bog and ran outside in the cranberry bog and almost got killed by a turkey vulture. Just saying. I'm running. I took a video of it, and I'm running, and like it was 10 feet in front of me. It comes out of the woods because I'm running around the cranberry bog, and it's covered. The perimeter is all woods, and he comes flying out with this wingspan of 2,000 feet, and I almost died. Just almost died.
So let me add, a new description. So Stephen is an attorney. He is a medium, a co-host, my husband. He is dramatic and at times quite hysterical. So, this is, these are the stories that I get to hear every day. Lucky me. But yeah, that's how he describes the vulture. Enormous, and he almost died. He almost got killed. by a boat.
Well, and I also told you, Elix, and I'm sure I'm not alone. So he like flew out, and then he just landed a little further in front of me, where this particular area, the snow had melted, which was great for me running. But he landed, and he was all settled. So what did I do? Then I had to turn, and I had to alter my run. So that, because I just thought, maybe he hasn't eaten breakfast and he's tired and he's going to use more energy if I make him move again. Nobody's here except me. And I thought, you know what? It's no big deal for me to turn around. So I don't know. Is that over the top, you think?
A little bit over the top, but that's you, and we've learned to love you exactly the way you are, and that's that. So, Stephen, talk to us about what's been going on, and what's the new and latest in Stephen the Medium's life?
Well, this just every day is just something new. You just wake up, you don't know what's going on, but something good's going on. So I'm starting, which I usually do this time of year. I'm starting a new course, which I am so excited about. It's a six-week course. So, and all the stuff I talk about, you can just go to Stephen the Medium website to see everything. But the course is
by the way, translation, he's starting a new course, so it's just like a study, because with his accent it's hard to hear what.
Seriously?
I'm starting a new course. So I'm sure there's people listening saying, what? He's starting what? He speaks Rhode Island, which is a very close accent to New York.
Yes, I do.
So go ahead.
Yes, I do. So I'm really excited about it. I think there's already
what's the course about?
It's a third part of one of my advanced courses, and the best thing to do is just check it out. You don't have to take the courses before. None of these are they build on each other, of course, but it's not completely necessary that you can't take this without taking part 1 and part 2. In any case, you just go and see the syllabus and see it on my website. It explains exactly what we're going to be going through, but this one's a really, really cool itinerary. So I'm really excited about it. And I think I usually max it out like 10 people. And I think it doesn't start for a couple of weeks. And I think there's 3 spots left. That's how fast this is going. So, and the group is so fantastic and great. And so I love doing it. I love teaching, and it's via Zoom. So obviously, you can be doing it with your pajamas on from your living room or bedroom, wherever you want. But it's really fun, safe space. It's great to understand spirit and, just to be more connected. And this week, Wednesday, I went to, in Massachusetts, a town called Braintree, and I did a group reading at their Council for the Elders, and it was, I was trying to guess. The director told me about a week before that there had already been 70 people that signed up. There was more than 70. There's probably a minimum of 80 people, if not close to 90, when I walked in, and it was like just the best event. It really was. Everybody was so in tuned and just wanting to get read. There was actually a couple of people in rows, like sort of like calling me over like I'm serving Coke at a restaurant. Like, yeah, that's not the way this works. But some of the messages, I was standing right next to a woman. She was at the aisle row, and because I was in the middle of the aisle, and as I was standing there, I'm like, oh, there's a young male, a son, and I just look down, and she starts crying, and it was her son, and he did such an amazing job giving her validations and messages, and it was really, really terrific. And let me just finish up with, I think it was the second woman or third or fourth, I don't know, woman I read, and I said to her, what is your name? And she said, Wanda. And I said, your dad's here. And I said, he keeps saying the V, and is very adamant about the V letter. I'm like, I don't usually get the V letter. And so she said, that's because my real name is Vanda, not Wanda. And of course, the whole group just erupted and were like, oh my God. And then I said, yeah, Dad, I don't know how thrilled he is that you changed it to Wanda. And everyone was laughing because they don't care, right? And but I did say to her, and your father keeps saying, talk about the coffee cups, the plates. There's a lot of dishes around. Elix, everybody in that room, or mostly everybody in that room, they again erupted laughing because they all know her and she works in the kitchen. And they yelled out, "She's surrounded by cups and plates every morning." It was really wild. So that's what's going on with Stephen the Medium.
And Stephen, I know we get often asked like what's been going on with our YouTube channel, because we haven't been doing Steelix Sundays with Steelix, but we haven't been doing it because we're working on another project, so we had to put that on hold for now. But we are gonna do some lives together, right?
Yes, it's like very, very, very soon.
Yes. So Stay tuned, because make sure that you follow us on social media at Coach Elix or at Stephen the Medium, because that's what we're going to do. And you know that when we're together, you're always going to laugh, and sometimes you're going to cry, and we keep you entertained. That's for sure.
At a minimum.
Anything else, Stephen? Anything else going on that we need to bring people up to speed?
Well, I mean, I'm doing a live event, in-person event in my office, I think February 3rd or 4th, but that's sold out. And I am doing one back in Dunn & Sons, which I love doing. Shout out to Erica and Adam, who own
amazing people, yes.
Yes.
And Dunn & Sons is a wine boutique. It's super incredible and one of a kind. So if you ever find yourself in the Boston area or the Cape Cod area, you got to drive to, I think it's in Yarmouth, right, Stephen?
Yes, it is. Yep.
To Dunn & Sons. It really is. If you love great wine, one of a kind, that boutique is really special. So highly recommend.
And that's where I get to do an event, and that event is really great because it's the maximum of 16 people. Everybody gets read, and that has never not been sold out when I put that on. And it actually is not on yet. I just okayed the date with Erica, March 2nd, whatever that Sunday is. I think it's March 2nd. And my assistant, Amanda, is going to be putting that together on my website too. So, and I'll make a post and share the ad. So, and that's really good, especially in the wintertime. People are looking to do something, and this is such a fun group. And Derek is usually there, who works there, and he is just fabulous.
And if you're listening and you're not from New England or Boston, and you're wondering, well, how can I get to see Stephen? You can always find him virtually, right? Because you do Zoom, and they can be anywhere in the world.
Yes, that is true.
And how do they find you?
Stephen the
Medium.
Medium.
To like spell it out for
Stephen the Medium.
Oh my God! Seriously.
That's simple. And on social media, Stephen the Medium. It's Stephen the Medium everywhere.
But on social media, they don't get to book a Zoom with you if they are interested. They have to go to your website. So
yeah, but I haven't mentioned social media. I have already mentioned the website, so that's why I wanted to make sure people also knew. You want to check me out, you can also go on Instagram or Facebook and whatever. Oh, and by the way, just quickly, I'm also going to do one of my scavenger hunts. I periodically will put what's called a whisper in a bottle, just in places in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, and then start giving clues. And if you find one, you get a free virtual reading. So that's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad that I'm listening to today's show, because look what I get to hear.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, I didn't know anything about your studying that.
Yeah, I posted when I was on WJAR. In Rhode Island, I did a clip on the news, and it was all about the whisper in a bottle, or a note in a bottle. And the caption was, it's that time of year, so stay tuned.
I love it.
So maybe you don't watch me. That's what this is.
All
you
right.
give me nothing. I get nothing from you.
Let's move along, Betty. It is 1:15, so we need to take our first commercial break. But when we come back, we are going to talk to Dow Tucker, who is a powerhouse and truly embodies the essence of the alpha female. And we're going to be celebrating the power, resilience of, and unapologetic strength of the alpha female in today's episode. I am woman, hear me roar. We'll be right back.
Mala, ha, 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 ha.
Hello and thank you. Welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host. See, this is what you do. You get me off center. I am your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing and very silly at times co-host,
Stephen Frederick.
And I apologize about that, but I was trying to tune in, and Stephen totally distracted me. But today's we are delving into the unique traits that make powerful alpha women both inspiring, and I would say inspiring, visionary role models, but often, and very often, then we like to hear they're often perceived as intimidating. And we're going to discuss the importance of embracing these amazing quality and traits and unapologetically navigate personal and professional relationships as a strong, confident woman. And for that, we need a strong, confident woman. And there's nobody better than my friend, colleague, Dow Tucker. Miss Dow, hello. Welcome back.
Hey. So glad to be on with my two favorite people.
I love that. And by the way, you know, my assistant, she writes a lot of my, you know, some of the things that I should be looking at. And she wrote here, let's roll together. And I'm like, I'm having problems pronouncing the you know, I'm a woman. Hear me roll. Anyways.
I love it.
Steven, what's wrong with
you? I don't even know. Dow, I don't even know where to go with that. I really don't.
But Dow, listen, before we get into the conversation, because I intended to talk about you and your really extensive experience as a powerful female leader in an often male-dominated world. So why don't you tell people about you and who you are and your experience as a leader?
As a leader, well, starting with who I am.
Yes.
So I am a mom, a wife, a friend, an executive, a sister, and I wear many hats and have many roles and enjoy all of them. I have been in the business of taking care of people for as long as I know. So I've been in the world of human resources for over 28 years. I started at the age of 19, and I have spent my time in the healthcare industry from substance abuse, mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities to acute care hospitals, and also home health and hospice in the dental industry as well. I've also spent my time as a consultant, consulting for hospitals across the U.S. from coast to coast, and had the pleasure of working with some phenomenal leaders and CEOs that remain my mentors today, and also did some consulting for the Department of the Navy as well, and knew very quickly that government was not going to be for me, and I needed to stay in healthcare.
So
that's who I am.
That is who you are, and you are powerful. You are a force to be reckoned with. I often refer to you as that. And I love today's conversation because today's conversation is about understanding that you can own your power. And we can we could say, an alpha woman leads with vision, that's you. Strategic thinking, that's you. The ability to inspire others, that's you. She can be assertive, right? She can be driven. But Dow, why is it that an alpha woman in business, let's talk about business first, and then we will move into life, because I think this conversation can be applicable to both. But why is it that she's misunderstood often?
Yes. So good question, Elix, and I want to get to that question, but I do think it's very important to describe the alpha female and some of the qualities so that people can understand the alpha. So
how would you describe that? Yes.
Yeah. So we're strong, we're confident, we're ambitious, we're driven. We can hold our own and very independent. We can be persistent. We're very fearless. We have high emotional intelligence, and we're a champion for change. So the one thing about the alpha female, I get so excited about the topic. The one thing about the alpha female is that we embody and embrace change, evolution, and growth. And we champion others for that change as well. And as you had mentioned, Elix, we are often challenged with you're intimidating. However, we encounter people who are easily intimidated opposed to us being intimidating. So we have to be very cautious and cognizant of our presence, because typically we can walk into a room and our presence alone can intimidate those who are easily intimidated without even saying a word. The alpha female, we don't want to be stereotyped as emotional, because the term emotional has a negative connotation in business, when in fact we can appear emotionless or very hard or very cold, and we're not. We know how to embody our masculine energy and our feminine energy, but we have to be in a safe space to be vulnerable and exude our womanness, right? So I think that's where we get to your question, Elix, about being misunderstood. Alpha women, such as myself, as long as I can remember, my earliest memory of myself goes back to 5 years old, where I've always been independent. I have a cousin who reminds me every time she sees me, she's like, you were that child who would say, I can do it myself. Nope, don't tie my shoe. I got it, as a little girl. But I also had men in my life, and a lot of alpha women do, men, very important men in my life who may have disappointed or may have not delivered, where I had to then tap into my masculine energy so that I could position my family and move myself forward. And this could be men in your life it could be a dad, it could be an uncle, a cousin, a brother, it could be a superior, a boss, a friend who may have let you down. And so what women do, as alpha women, is that, okay, we got this, and so we have to make moves, and so we tap into that masculine energy so we can make those moves. In business, because especially being a leader, an executive leader in business, where oftentimes we are the minority in the room, and we are sitting at the table with a lot of powerful men. We are often misunderstood when we exude that same power, right? And so if we are as assertive, we may be labeled as a bitch, or we may be labeled as hard or difficult to work with. Because if you go back, I know I'm just going on about this topic, I'm so excited, but Elitz and Stephen, if you were to look up the definition, I had this conversation with my husband the day before yesterday. Masculine traits, they have adjectives such as courage, independence, leadership, aggression. When you look up feminine traits, they have nurturer, timid, sensitive. So us as a society, we have in our mind that when a woman steps into that masculine realm and shows courage, that's a no-no, because the definition says that we must be timid and sensitive. When I believe that no matter what gender, we all possess masculine and feminine energy and feminine and masculine traits, and it should be accepted, whether in the workplace or even at home. I hope I answered your question, Elitz. I just get so excited about this topic.
I mean, you did, and you also provided a perspective that I hadn't thought about, because when I think about the subject, the first thing that comes to mind is how we as a society have been conditioned to look at women as the nurturer, because that's exactly how women were defined, for me anyways, my entire life. The woman has supposed to be the mom. She's supposed to be quiet. She's supposed to be kind. And when somebody like you, who embodies a very strong quality, you're confident, you are assertive, people have this tendency, we've been conditioned to label people like you as you're aggressive. We've heard this term very often lately. She's nasty. Well, why? Because she happens to be assertive. She happens to be confident. So how do we change that, Dow? Let me even frame it differently. I know there are powerful women listening to this conversation, and they too may find themselves wanting to put the lid on what's possible for them, because that's what they've been told, perhaps by their husbands or the men around them. How do we change that now?
Yeah, so, a lot of the work is going to be on the alpha female. The one thing that I've learned, so people will change through education, for sure. You can have the conversation with your male counterparts at work or your partner or your spouse. You can have the conversation, and you can challenge their thought. But as the alpha female, a lot of the work falls on us because there's a lot of responsibility with being alpha, right? So to all the female alphas listening to this call, I want to be very clear. I want you to be authentic. I want you to be unapologetically you. But I also want you to be responsible for your alpha. So you have to be sure, because your presence alone is so powerful, you have to be sure in your interactions that you're not bulldozing people with your alpha, right? Mm-hmm. So for an example, I'm going to take this to home. And so, when I'm at home, I have to make sure, and my husband has said, in conversations, because we love to debate about topics, he will say, Dow, don't HR me today. right? You got to be able to take off that hat, right? There's a difference between the boardroom and the bedroom, ladies, right? When you are at home and you can take off some of that masculine energy, you can keep it at the door, and then you can really exude some of that feminine energy so that you're not butting heads with your husband or your partner with just so much masculinity, right? It must be a balance. So to say change, it's going to be very tough to change someone's thought process. Only you can have it through conversation and dialogue. But you as the alpha female, you need to be able to pivot and be able to take off your masculinity hat versus your femininity hat. I do want to say this, and I want to reiterate. As an alpha female, and if you're a single alpha female, and I have a lot of single alpha female friends who struggle with finding their mate, you just want to be sure that as you're out and you're looking for your forever person, that you're going to leave some room and space to be feminine. And I think that's the one thing about alpha females is that in order for us to exude our womanness or exude our femininity or to be vulnerable, our partners have to create a safe space for us to do so. Because we were told, and we have been told up till today, that when we are emotional, it's bad. We're too emotional. And so I am going to tell you, you know my husband, but I have cried more with my husband than I have ever cried with any man ever. And I never wanted anyone else to see that part of me, of being emotional, but he has created the safe space for me to be vulnerable and to bring out my femininity.
I totally get that. Now, we do need to take a small commercial break, but when we come back, we have to continue with this amazing conversation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my very, very silly co-host,
Stephen the Medium, is here.
Stephen the Medium, who's an attorney, a medium, and my husband in very silly at very times. And today, we have a very special guest, Dow Tucker, who is a powerhouse who truly embodies the essence of being an alpha woman. and we are celebrating the power, resilience, and unapologetic strength of the alpha woman. In today's episode, I am a woman. Hear me. Welcome back.
And I'm silly.
Listen, that's the only way I can pronounce that word. So anyways, welcome back, Dow Tucker. Stephen has a question for you.
Yes.
Hello, Dow. Listen, I have something that I'm very interested in hearing your response to this question. So let's just use a business environment, and you have a peer of yours, maybe even at the same level or somewhere around there, a woman who does not share your perspective on the capabilities of woman, does not share your perspective on an alpha woman also. Do you process that differently than you would if it's a guy doing that because, it's a woman?
Do I process that differently? I process it all the same, to be quite honest with you. Whether it's a male or female who is presenting me with an opposing view of being alpha, my approach is going to be the same. And I have been in those situations. I have been in a situation where I've had a female peer, who may have not exuded confidence and was very intimidated by mine. I've also been in situations where I've had a male counterpart who thought that I was too hard or too strong and thought that maybe that I needed to, as they would say, bring it down as well. In those instances, it's me building the relationship with them and meeting them where they are, and then them sharing more about me, my story, my journey, my life, who I am, and the value that I bring, and how I can complement them through my alpha and through my skills.
Wow. Dow, I love the answer. I guess when I was sort of formulating that question, I was just thinking if I was dealing with a straight guy versus a gay guy, and the straight guy was, not so much as an advocate of the LGBTQ team, I would process that differently than if I was speaking to a gay guy that also wasn't like supportive of the same community, almost in the sense of how you're part of my community. You're a gay guy. You have to like almost bringing them to a higher standard. And I wanted to ask that question, thinking it's another woman. Like why aren't you supporting this? So I love your answer because I did not expect that answer, and I appreciate that, Dow.
Not all women are alphas. So yeah, my approach is pretty much the same. But there are women that you would hope would feel empowered by your strength and your alpha, and hopefully it empowers them as well. Because oftentimes those that are less confident, they lose their voice in the workplace. And I'm all about women empowerment. Let's do this together. Let's not compete against each other, but how can we wrap arms and how can we make this work together? And so hopefully through your alpha, you can empower them to be a voice and speak up for themselves and really position themselves with a seat at the table.
I love that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is there a difference between being an alpha and being somebody who is confident, somebody who has a vision for herself, somebody who has a voice? Or do you think those, or can that be the same, or can they be different? I guess that's my question.
Those are definitely alpha traits, for sure. So I would consider that person to be an alpha.
Okay. So then what I'm thinking, Dow, is, do you think that there are women out there? By the way, I think this also applies to male, even though differently, because they haven't been conditioned in the same way. But do you think there are females out there that they have those qualities, but they don't know how to embrace their alpha traits, or they are afraid to embrace their alpha traits because of what how that may be perceived.
You are spot on, Elix, because there are women who possess those traits, and I was one of those women back in my day that would conform to what I felt that my peers wanted me to be. And let me just tell you, in that environment, when you cannot be your authentic self, it is a miserable space to be in. When you are at the workplace or even at home and you have ideas and that you're confident about or you're passionate, but you feel like you need to conform to the way the other person feels that you should be, then you feel trapped. You feel kind of like this caged bird, and then you're living in this internal misery. In my career, I have walked away from tables. I have walked away from executive leadership positions where I felt that my alpha was not appreciated, where I felt that my team wanted me to conform. And at those tables, I was the only female at the table, and I was the only person of color. And so I felt like the expectation was for me to be silent, to be a doer, to a follower, and not a leader. And I was miserable, where I finally made the decision that if this is not the right audience for my alpha, I will find an audience who would appreciate what I can bring.
I mean, that is a great way of looking at it, because to be honest with you, Dow, that applies to everything, because anyone who is not living their authentic self in life, it's going to have a pretty hard life to live. I mean, by hard meaning not perhaps not the life that they want. They'll be living somebody else's somebody else's life that they want for themselves. I don't know. You get what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you feel mentally, you feel trapped, and then mentally turns to physical. And then you have no desire to go to work. You have no desire to show up. You have no desire to speak up. And then what once was your passion now just becomes a job. And you're unhappy. And then you can take that home with you. And then your personal life begins to be unhappy.
Yeah, I actually, Dow, it's interesting because I think you and I had a conversation back in the day when it was a male that had said to you, you have to, I can't remember exactly, but like bring it down a notch or so, or tame yourself or something like that. And I remember you talking to me about that. And I remember my response being, that's not your problem. That's their problem. You got to be you. You got to honor you. So my question is, and I think we may have to take a break because we're coming to the top of the hour. So, but I'm gonna tell you the question, and then you can come back. What advice would you have to somebody who's struggling with accepting and embracing those very important alpha traits that they know they have? So, with that said, Dow, think about that. We're going to take a small commercial break and we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co-host,
Stephen Frederick.
And today we are having an amazing conversation. I am a woman, hear me roar, with the amazing and powerful Dow Tucker. Welcome back, Dow.
Hi there.
So the question before the break was, what advice would you give to a woman or anyone listening who is struggling in accepting and embracing their alpha qualities?
Yes. The state of the world today is so chaotic. It's so uncertain. We need your boldness. So the time is now. I mean, if you're living a life of conforming or containing the qualities that this world needs, then you're doing a disservice to not only yourself, but everyone around you. So my advice is this: time is now. Live in your purpose. Live your why. And if you work with Coach Elix, he'll help you with that because he'll help you create a legacy statement. But you want to live your best life. And your best life is living and showing all of the great, bold qualities as an alpha female, because we're leaders. We are change agents. And we're champions for change. And this is what we need, not only in our lives personally, but as we're touching the lives of other people as well. Don't be afraid.
That's right. And that, honestly, Dow, that is such a beautiful, beautiful statement, because that statement, it's applicable to all of life, every single part of life. So regardless of who you are and how you're listening to this conversation, that is really a wonderful and empowering way to live your life. Be willing to step up. Be willing to own who you are. I love that. Stephen, you have any questions for Dow? Any other questions for Dow?
Dow, just based on the subject that what you're talking about, have any of your kids ever brought this subject up or made a comment or had any kind of conversation about alpha females and the strength of who you are, that whole subject?
Well, yes, they have. Well, not the subject, but in their own way of having the conversation. I have my 19-year-old son, Jaden. He is my most sensitive out of all my children, and he sees the world with rosy-colored glasses. And he took me to dinner, and it was just like the amazing thing, because like this child can take me to dinner now because he's grown up a bit. And he said to me, he was like, "Mom, it's sometimes hard to talk to you." And that I knew, okay, it's my alpha. He's hard to talk to my alpha. And I said, all you got to do is open up your mouth and just speak. Don't be afraid, because I'm teaching him to exude his alpha. And he said, "Mom, you always just keep it real with me." And I said, "Well, son, do you want me to keep it fake?" I said, you need someone who can be able to tell you the truth. And not only am I going to tell you the positives of the world, but I also want you to have a level of discernment to know the negatives and what's happening in the world. And finally, when we ended dinner, he was like, "You know what, Mom? I always keep it real with everyone else, and I'm realizing that I keep it real with people, but I don't want people to keep it real with me." And I said, "Well, that's a great observation, son." So that's where I tell women all the time, because we're so strong, and the intimidation, or we can meet people who are very intimidated by our strength. Sometimes we have to be responsible for that, make sure that we're not bulldozing, but we also give them the invite to have the conversation. I have had so many people, in just this week, I met with a leader, and she's a phenomenal powerhouse too. And it was just interesting because she said to me, she said, "Dow, like if people don't get to know you, they're just like, oh my God, there's Dow, here she comes, you're just so powerful." And she's equally as powerful. So we were just talking about how we just needed to balance that so that people can feel comfortable and not be afraid to approach us.
Wow. Dow, when you talk about being responsible for your power, one of the things that come to mind is that responsibility, in order to be responsible, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. But how can a person who is alpha embrace being vulnerable without feeling less powerful?
Yes. You have to find your network. You have to find your network of safe spaces, right? The one thing about alpha females, we are very smart, very astute. We know who's trustworthy and who's not. You have to have that connection, whether it's in your family, in your relationships, or even your friends, where you could just let your hair down and it's okay to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm tired today. That's the one thing about the alpha female. People see us so strong. And I've even had to say to my family, they're like, oh, Dal's strong. She has it. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I have feelings too. I'm not as strong as you think that I am, but you always see it all the time. So I would say, definitely, find that safe space, find that network in your go-to so that you can be vulnerable, because you gotta take the alpha hat down, because it can affect you, it can affect your health. We cannot always, it feels like we're walking out in the world when we leave our front door and we have the shield over us that we put around us as we go out and venture into the world. And sometimes we need to put that shield down.
That is such a great advice. I also think, alpha women have been or are perceived to always to have conflict with one another because they're alphas, right? But that doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. So the question for you, Dow, is how can alpha women support other women in their journey to embrace their power and their leadership potential?
Yes. So we have high emotional intelligence, so we're very self-aware and we're very aware of people around us. And this is where you have to be responsible for your alpha, not bulldoze over people. But I always like to meet people where they are. You tailor your conversation to your audience. You may have, I have a colleague who's like, Dow, give it to me straight, and you're going to get it straight. And then I have another who, if I give it straight, the message is lost. So I may have to pad the message or add a little fluff, just so that they can get the message loud and clear. And so you just have to tailor who you're talking to, meet them where they are. But then also when you open up yourself so that they get to know you, I've sat down with female leaders and talked about, hey, here's some struggles I've had. And it's like, Dow, you struggled? When? Right? And it's like, of course, I'm a human being. I'm not a superwoman, which I sometimes think I am, but I struggle too. I'm a human being. But when they see that level of vulnerability and you tell your journey and your story and they really get to meet you, they gain an appreciation and an admiration, and then it empowers them at the same time.
That's wonderful. And in doing so, it empowers oneself as well, I would argue.
Absolutely.
So we are at the top of the hour. So I want to give you an opportunity to give our listeners one last golden nugget. What would you say to anyone listening who says, she's talking to me, but I'm still unsure, or I am struggling at work, or people have, put me down for being strong? What would you tell any of our listeners?
Yes. It takes all kinds of people to make the world go around. That is one thing that I have learned. Embrace your individuality. There is only one you. The world needs the one you. You cannot be duplicated. Embrace who you are. Be unapologetically you, and show the world your boldness. Don't be afraid. Step out. But through that, alpha females, you want to be sure that you create the perfect balance between your masculine energy that people see a lot in business or maybe even at home, but you also want to balance that with all of the feminine traits that we have, to be, sensitive and to be vulnerable and to be nurturers and that type of thing.
Beautiful. Stephen, any last words for Dow before we complete the show today?
No, I'm so glad that you came on today, and I think this is such an incredible conversation to have, Dow, for our listeners, for both sexes. I mean, because I was thinking as you're speaking this entire hour, I'm thinking just about you and alpha female, and then I just realized, my God, but just explaining and understanding for the guys to know this too is such a great thing, and I think just a way to move this even more forward than it is.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And I actually think that the message applies to anyone. You could be a male, you could be a female, but that message, your message is applicable to all of them. Dow, how can people get a hold of you?
Yes, so you can actually check me out on my LinkedIn page. You can contact me through LinkedIn. I stay pretty active there. Or you can reach out to me. I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Jet Health, and so you can reach out by emailing me at dow.tucker@jethealthinc.com.
So now all of you know why I love this woman, because now all of you love her just as much as I do. Dow, thank you so much for being here, for being part of this amazing, empowering series, women's series that we've been doing, and we look forward to having you again soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and thank you for sharing your time and your attention so generously with all of us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Dow.
Thank you. Oh my God, Stephen, what an amazing conversation. I feel so empowered by listening to her today.
And the time just goes by so fast.
It is. It's almost like this is just not enough time to dive into these deep, very thought-provoking conversations. But I hope all of you got a lot of value from today's conversation. And, tune in next week. I believe we have a very special show. You want to tell people about it?
Are you going to Raw next week too? This week?
Well, I am me. Hear me.
Next week is this. I don't even know how to explain this guy. Just handsome, smart,
silly
and silly, and talks to dead people. So next Friday, 1 p.m. Get ready, because Through the Static is back.
Awesome. So you want to hear Steven? We switch places next week. He'll take over. I'll be his co-host. And if you're interested in getting a spirit reading, that's the time to get it done. So tune in next week, same time, same place.
And find me at Stephen the Medium.
Beautiful. And you can find me at Coach Helix. And stay tuned, because our producer, Mark Clark, has his very own show, Mark's Jukebox, coming up at 2 p.m. WARA 1320. Thank you to the radio station, Mr. Jim Jones, and every single person at WARA for always supporting us. And have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.